Most people think that there are two types of people in this world. Those who hustle, who've got drive and ambition, and those without. Which one are you? Everything we learn about in the Torah is meant to be a lesson for the way that you live your life. On a physical level, on a spiritual level, on a sociological level, every part and every story has its own message. When God commands the Jewish people to build a temple, he wasn't therefore only talking to them about the building of a temple. In fact, for much of Jewish history, we didn't actually have temples. But the mitzvot and the concepts that lie therein are messages for us regardless. I would like to focus on one. Each component of the Mishkan, of the temple, had its very own set of characteristics, design, and measurements. And we're meant to learn something from each one's specific nature. The ark, which stands in the Holy of Holies, had a measurement of 2.5 by 1.5. The Shulchan, on the other hand, the table, has a measurement of 2 by 1. The commentators point out something which I think is beautiful. Contained inside the Aron were the pieces of the Luchot, the original tablets that were given to Moses on Mount Sinai. The Aron represented the core of spirituality. It had inside of it the messages and the moral fiber of what was ultimately to become the source of so much of the world's religion. The Shulchan, on the other hand, contained bread. It represented the nature, not of spirituality, but of physicality in the world. And the Jewish ideal that even physical things have a place in the spiritual world. And that all physical things also were to be considered a blessing from Hashem. But there's one message specifically that I found that was especially powerful. And that was an idea that was explained by the commentators about the specific size. The measurement of the Aron, the ark, is in halves, versus the Shulchan, which is 2 by 1 holes. The idea of half is to feel that you haven't completed the measure. When it comes to spiritual pursuits, a person should never say, I've done enough. There should always be more to grow, always be more to climb. On the other hand, on a physical level, a person should be able to get to a place where the measurement that they have is enough and they don't feel like they only have half. The Talmud says, Yesh lo maneh, if he's got 100, rotze matayim, he wants 2. Yesh lo matayim, if he's got 2, how much does he want? Arba me'ot. And the rabbis explained that seemingly the more a person has of physical stuff, we actually experience a greater disparity between what we have and what we want, what we crave. The difference between 100 and 2 is only 100. The difference between 2 and 4, although it's double, is 200. So the space between what you have and what you want grows as you acquire things. One of the greatest experiences of my life was an opportunity I had to go to a place in Johannesburg called Soweto. It's a place in South Africa where people live in the most horrific conditions, where poverty is rampant, disease is everywhere. And we went there, and all of the students that I brought on this trip wanted to give to these children that had nothing. They're giving them food. Some of them took off their watches. Other people gave them their electronics, because you're filled with such a love and such an awareness of how much you have and how much other people don't. And one student came to me and asked me a question that left me stunned. He said, Rabbi, look around. These kids, they all have big smiles on their faces. Where I come from, no kids are happy. They're always looking for the very next gadget, looking for the very next thing. Why are we trying to give them what we have if they are happy with what they have? Our society is not better than theirs because it has more. Now, obviously, there's different ways of looking at that comment. And we could argue about whether it was right or wrong to give in that situation our things to them. But I think the point remains the same. Our ability to find a place in ourselves which feels satisfied, happy with what we've got, and not to feel like we need more is something which is so important when it comes to the things we have. On the other hand, when it comes to that which we are, our journey never ends. And we can always accomplish and develop more, learn more, achieve more, give more. There's one sentence said by two brothers that starts exactly the same and ends radically different. When Jacob is describing what he has, he says, Yesh li kol, I have everything. When his brother says the same sentence, Esav says, Yesh li rav, I have a lot. The difference between those two, even though it's just one word at the end of the sentence, is enormous. But here's the kicker. Lots of people say, Rabbi, I'm not satisfied because that's my nature. I'm hungry. The very same thing that drives me to move forward in my business, in my life, in my aspirations. That's the thing that drives me to make more money, to have more stuff, etc. What we're learning from the Torah is that we are not victims of life in our personality traits, but that we can decide where and when we want to switch this thing called satisfaction on. Shabbat Shalom.